Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered why you tend to attract certain kinds of people into your life, while others seem to drift away, almost without explanation? Why is it that certain personalities draw us in, while others make us feel repelled? If you have ever asked yourself these questions, then today, I hope to shed some light on the unconscious forces that may be at work, subtly influencing the connections we make. The first point I want to explore is the power of the unconscious mind. We are all familiar with our conscious thoughts, the decisions we make in the waking world. But beneath the surface, there is a far more influential force: the unconscious mind. This is where our hidden desires, suppressed emotions, and unresolved conflicts reside. It is in the depths of our unconscious that we shape our reality, even if we aren't fully aware of it. Without even knowing it, we attract people who resonate with our inner world. It's almost as if we are drawn to those who reflect a part of ourselves, whether it's something we seek to understand better, something we admire, or even something we want to avoid. Our relationships become mirrors of our inner psyche, showing us aspects of ourselves that we may not be able to access on our own. In this way, our unconscious mind determines the relationships we draw into our lives, guiding us toward people who echo the most intimate and unspoken parts of ourselves. Next, we come to the concept of the shadow self and projection. Every single one of us has a shadow, those parts of our personality that we tend to suppress, deny, or reject. These parts can be difficult to accept, as they often contain the aspects of ourselves we are least comfortable with. However, what's fascinating is that we often attract people who reflect these hidden aspects of our own nature. When we encounter others who embody qualities we have repressed or ignored, we may feel uncomfortable, frustrated, or even threatened. Yet, these individuals offer us a unique opportunity, a chance to confront and integrate our shadow. It is through these relationships that we have the opportunity to embrace the parts of ourselves we have long avoided. The people we meet are, in many ways, projections of what lies hidden in our unconscious, allowing us to work through our own internal struggles and bring a more complete version of ourselves into the light. Finally, we come to archetypes and the patterns they create. Deep within the human psyche, there are universal patterns that shape not only our behaviors, but also the way we relate to others. These patterns, known as archetypes, are a part of the collective unconscious. They are timeless and ever-present, representing the various roles and energies we all embody throughout our lives: the lover, the caregiver, the rebel, the teacher, the healer, and so on. We tend to attract people who resonate with the same archetypal patterns that we embody. For example, if you see yourself as a caregiver, you might be drawn to someone who needs nurturing, or someone who embodies the role of the wounded healer. If you are a free spirit, you may attract someone who is equally independent, or someone who seeks adventure. These archetypes provide us with a script for our relationships, but they also offer us the opportunity to evolve and transcend the roles we unconsciously play. What's important to remember is that these patterns are not static. We have the power to change and grow beyond the confines of our unconscious archetypes, if we are open to it. The people we attract are not mere coincidences. They are the reflections of these deep universal energies within us. So why do we attract the people we do? It is not by chance. It is not random. It is the result of our unconscious minds working behind the scenes, guiding us toward the people who will help us understand ourselves better. Whether through mirroring our shadow selves, embodying the archetypes we need to explore, or simply reflecting back the unspoken parts of our inner world, these relationships offer us a chance for growth, transformation, and self-awareness. The unconscious mind is one of the most powerful and mysterious forces in human existence, shaping much of the way we think, feel, and act. While we are often aware of our conscious thoughts, desires, and decisions, the unconscious mind operates beneath the surface, influencing our behavior in ways we may never fully understand. In fact, it is this hidden realm of the psyche that plays a crucial role in the kinds of people we attract into our lives. At first glance, it may seem like the people we meet and form relationships with are purely the result of random chance or external circumstances. But a closer look reveals that our unconscious mind is far more involved in shaping the dynamics of our relationships than we might realize. The unconscious mind doesn't operate through direct thought or intention. Instead, it communicates through symbols, feelings, and impulses, often manifesting in ways we cannot easily recognize. As a result, the people we draw into our lives often have an uncanny ability to reflect parts of ourselves that are not always visible in our waking consciousness. One of the fundamental aspects of the unconscious mind is its role in storing our deepest desires, fears, and unresolved conflicts. These are the parts of our psyche that we may not fully understand or consciously acknowledge, but they are far from dormant. The desires we keep hidden, the fears we push aside, and the emotional wounds we have yet to heal all reside here, and it is precisely these aspects of our inner world that influence the kinds of people we attract. Without us realizing it, our unconscious mind sends out subtle signals that draw others who resonate with these unspoken desires, fears, or conflicts. For example, someone who has unresolved issues with self-worth might find themselves constantly attracting individuals who reflect or reinforce those feelings. They may subconsciously choose people who treat them poorly or who undervalue them, simply because their unconscious mind is drawn to relationships that mirror the internal struggles they are trying to resolve. The unconscious mind, in this way, acts almost like a magnet, pulling in people whose presence offers an opportunity for growth, healing, or confrontation with those inner wounds. Similarly, people who are deeply afraid of rejection may find themselves unconsciously attracting individuals who are emotionally distant or unable to commit fully. The unconscious mind is not interested in keeping things comfortable or convenient. Rather, it seeks situations where growth and healing are possible, even if this means facing uncomfortable truths or patterns that we'd rather avoid. In this sense, the people we meet are not random, but rather serve as catalysts that help bring to the surface the unconscious material we need to confront and integrate into our waking consciousness. This dynamic between the unconscious mind and the people we attract is not always a negative or challenging experience. Often, we are drawn to people who represent qualities or energies we wish to embrace more fully in ourselves. For instance, someone who feels disconnected from their own creativity or sense of adventure might be drawn to someone who embodies those qualities. Our unconscious mind can guide us toward individuals who reflect the traits we feel are missing in our lives, encouraging us to reconnect with parts of ourselves that we may have lost touch with over time. When we are drawn to someone with a particular quality that we admire, it is not simply admiration from a distance. It is often a deep, unconscious desire to experience or embody that quality more fully in our own lives. This could manifest in the attraction to someone who is highly self-assured, someone who is deeply compassionate, or someone who is unapologetically bold. These qualities might speak to us on a level that bypasses rational thought, drawing us toward these individuals not just because of who they are, but because they reflect something that we need to recognize and integrate in ourselves. At times, our unconscious mind works through a process known as resonance. This is where we attract people who vibrate on the same emotional or psychological frequency as we do. Our unconscious states are like a radio signal, emitting a certain frequency that resonates with others who are operating at a similar emotional or psychological level. In this way, we connect with people who share our emotional needs, fears, or desires, whether we are conscious of them or not. For example, two people who have experienced similar emotional traumas may find that they are drawn together because of their shared emotional frequency. This resonance creates an immediate sense of familiarity or comfort, as if they have known each other for much longer than they actually have. It's not necessarily a conscious decision to seek out someone who shares similar experiences, but rather an unconscious attraction that feels both familiar and safe, even if the relationship itself is challenging. Moreover, the unconscious mind is also influenced by our early experiences, particularly the relationships we had with our caregivers or primary attachment figures. These early attachments form the foundation of our unconscious patterns in relationships throughout our lives. If someone grew up in an environment where love and affection were conditional or inconsistent, they may find themselves unconsciously seeking out relationships with similar dynamics. The unconscious mind, in its attempt to recreate and resolve early emotional experiences, draws people into our lives who reflect those same patterns, often in an attempt to create a different outcome. This pattern is not something we consciously choose, but rather an unconscious drive to heal and resolve past emotional conflicts. It is important to note that the unconscious mind does not always attract people based on logic, reason, or what might be best for us. Instead, it follows a different kind of logic, one that is rooted in emotional and psychological needs that may not always be obvious to our waking minds. The people we attract are often reflections of what lies beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. They are the physical manifestations of our inner world, those aspects of our psyche that are waiting to be explored, understood, or healed. Ultimately, the people we attract into our lives are not mere accidents or coincidences. They are the result of deep, unconscious forces that guide us toward relationships that reflect our inner truths, whether those truths are comforting or uncomfortable. These individuals provide us with an opportunity to confront the parts of ourselves that we may not have fully acknowledged or accepted, offering us a chance for growth, healing, and self-discovery. Whether they serve as mirrors of our hidden fears or as reflections of our deepest desires, the people we attract are part of the complex and beautiful dance between the conscious and unconscious mind. Every person carries a shadow, the parts of themselves that are hidden from the conscious mind, often because they are deemed unacceptable or undesirable. This concept of the shadow is a central element of human psychology, although many are not consciously aware of it. The shadow encompasses those aspects of our personality that we suppress or deny, and they are formed from past experiences, societal expectations, and personal insecurities. These parts of us are not inherently negative, but we tend to perceive them as such, which leads to their repression. However, these denied aspects don't simply disappear, they remain within the unconscious, influencing our lives in ways we may not understand. One of the most fascinating ways the shadow operates is through projection, a psychological mechanism that causes us to project our own hidden qualities onto others. Projection occurs when we unconsciously attribute qualities, emotions, or characteristics to someone else that we refuse to acknowledge within ourselves. This is an automatic defense mechanism, a way of dealing with aspects of our psyche that we find too difficult or painful to confront. For example, if someone harbors feelings of jealousy but refuses to acknowledge them as their own, they may project these feelings onto others, perceiving those around them as jealous or envious. In relationships, this projection often plays a key role in the dynamics between individuals, as we tend to see in others the very qualities we are reluctant to accept in ourselves. It is through this process of projection that we often attract certain people into our lives. The individuals we encounter are not merely random figures. They are mirrors that reflect back to us the aspects of ourselves that we are either unwilling or unable to face directly. These projections are not confined to negative traits alone. We also project our positive qualities onto others, often seeing in them virtues or strengths that we deny in ourselves. This can create a dynamic where we look to others to fulfill what we feel is lacking within us, even if we are not fully aware of it. When we encounter someone who embodies qualities we are repressing, whether they are positive or negative, our reaction to them is often intense. We may feel an overwhelming attraction or an equally strong aversion. These emotional reactions are not necessarily about the other person, but about what they represent within us. The person who reminds us of our unacknowledged anger may evoke feelings of irritation or hostility, while the person who embodies the confidence we lack might trigger both admiration and insecurity. These responses are the result of the unconscious projection of our own hidden emotions or traits. At times, we find ourselves drawn to people who seem to embody the very qualities we find most difficult to accept within ourselves. For example, a person who has been taught to suppress their anger may find themselves repeatedly attracted to individuals who are outwardly angry or confrontational. The relationship dynamics that emerge from such attractions are often charged with conflict, as the unconscious mind seeks to bring the suppressed emotion to the surface. This can create a pattern in which we are constantly in relationships that challenge our ability to deal with our own suppressed feelings. Similarly, if a person has been raised in an environment where vulnerability was seen as weakness, they may be drawn to individuals who are emotionally open and expressive. These relationships can feel both healing and unnerving. The attraction is not simply to the other person's emotional openness, but to the vulnerability that the individual is afraid to express themselves. In these relationships, there is often an internal struggle. The conscious mind may resist being emotionally open, while the unconscious mind is drawn to the very thing it seeks to integrate: emotional authenticity and vulnerability. These projections can also work in the opposite direction. Sometimes we project the darker, more negative aspects of our shadow onto others. This often happens when we are unable to acknowledge traits such as selfishness, cruelty, or dishonesty within ourselves. We may see these qualities in others and react with strong judgment, condemnation, or even disdain, not realizing that these traits are part of us, albeit in a repressed form. When we project our darker qualities onto others, it can lead to misunderstandings, strained relationships, and even conflict. The person we judge for being arrogant or deceitful may simply be reflecting back to us those same qualities we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. However, this projection is not inherently malicious or intentional. It is simply a reflection of our inner turmoil. The unconscious mind is constantly trying to make sense of the things we cannot accept about ourselves, and projection is one way of externalizing these unresolved aspects. By doing so, the unconscious mind creates the opportunity for us to confront the very qualities we repress. This is where the people we attract come into play. We are drawn to individuals who embody our projections because they serve as the external counterparts to our internal struggles. The process of projection offers a unique opportunity for growth. When we encounter someone who triggers a strong emotional reaction in us, whether positive or negative, it is often a sign that we are seeing a part of ourselves reflected in that person. Instead of dismissing or rejecting the feelings that arise, we can use them as a gateway to self-awareness. By examining our emotional reactions and exploring where these projections come from, we can begin to understand the aspects of ourselves that are hidden in the shadows. This process of integration is not always easy, but it is necessary for personal development. In relationships, projections can also create a sense of unconscious familiarity. When we meet someone who reflects our shadow, it can feel as if we have known them forever. There is an uncanny sense of recognition, even if the relationship is new. This familiarity comes from the fact that the person embodies the parts of ourselves that we have yet to fully accept. The attraction or repulsion we feel toward them is not just about who they are in the present moment, but about who we are in relation to our own unconscious material. Through these relationships, we are offered the chance to bring our shadow into the light, to acknowledge the parts of ourselves we have long ignored or denied. The people we attract are not merely accidents of fate. They are essential players in the process of self-discovery. By embracing the lessons they bring, we can begin to integrate the aspects of our psyche that we have kept hidden, and in doing so, we become more whole, more authentic, and more at peace with ourselves. At the deepest levels of our psyche, there exists a reservoir of universal patterns and energies that shape not only our behavior, but also the way we relate to others. These patterns, known as archetypes, are ancient, deeply embedded in the human experience, and transcend individual consciousness. Archetypes represent fundamental human motifs, universal symbols and roles that are reflected throughout history, culture, and personal experience. We each embody these archetypal patterns in different ways, and these energies influence the relationships we form and the people we are drawn to. The connections we make, whether romantic, familial, or professional, are often reflections of these powerful, unconscious archetypal forces that shape how we see ourselves and others. Each archetype represents a specific energy or role that plays out in various forms throughout our lives. These archetypes are not fixed identities, but rather dynamic expressions of certain human potentials and tendencies. For example, the hero archetype represents the quest for growth and personal transformation, often manifested in individuals who strive to overcome challenges, face adversity, and seek deeper meaning. The caregiver archetype embodies compassion and nurturance, offering unconditional love and protection to those in need. The rebel archetype challenges the status quo and seeks to break free from societal constraints. Each of us carries these archetypal energies within us, sometimes consciously and other times unconsciously, and it is through these archetypes that we attract people who resonate with similar qualities, patterns, and desires. The relationships we form are often mirrors of the archetypes that we are embodying at any given time in our lives. We tend to attract individuals who reflect these roles and patterns, forming a dynamic that serves to either support or challenge the particular archetype we are working with. For instance, someone who identifies strongly with the hero archetype may be drawn to a partner who embodies the role of the mentor, someone who can provide guidance, wisdom, and insight to aid in their personal growth. Conversely, an individual embodying the shadow archetype, the darker, repressed aspects of the psyche, may attract people who reflect their own unresolved inner struggles, giving them the opportunity to confront and integrate these hidden parts of themselves. These archetypal dynamics are not confined to one-on-one relationships. They also play out in the broader context of our social circles, our family dynamics, and even our professional lives. Within a family, for example, one sibling may naturally take on the role of the caregiver, while another may embody the rebel, always challenging family traditions or expectations. The tension between these archetypes can create both conflict and growth, pushing individuals to confront parts of themselves that they might otherwise avoid. In the workplace, we may attract colleagues who reflect certain aspects of our own personality, such as the creator archetype, which is drawn to innovative and imaginative pursuits, or the ruler, who desires control, structure, and order. It is also important to recognize that these archetypal patterns are not static. They evolve over time as we progress on our personal journeys. Our relationships, too, reflect this evolution. As we grow and shift, the archetypes we embody will change, and so will the people we attract. For example, someone who has spent much of their life embodying the victim archetype, someone who feels powerless, helpless, or at the mercy of external circumstances, may at a certain point be drawn to a partner who embodies the warrior archetype, someone who is assertive, strong, and empowered. This shift in attraction may signal an inner desire to move beyond a state of victimhood and embrace personal strength and agency. The warrior, in turn, may be attracted to the victim as a way of learning empathy and compassion, balancing their own assertiveness with vulnerability. The interplay of these archetypal forces can also reveal patterns that are not always healthy or constructive. For instance, an individual who strongly identifies with the caregiver archetype might repeatedly attract people who are overly dependent or emotionally needy. In this dynamic, the caregiver may find themselves constantly sacrificing their own needs for others, becoming overwhelmed and resentful in the process. Alternatively, someone embodying the hero archetype might attract individuals who play the role of the damsel in distress, leading to a relationship where the hero is constantly rescuing the other person, never truly addressing their own needs for growth and independence. These patterns reflect the unconscious dynamics of the archetypes at play, and often the lesson lies in recognizing the limitations of the roles we have adopted and striving to move beyond them. As we become more aware of the archetypal patterns that govern our relationships, we can begin to recognize the roles that we unconsciously play and the ones we are unconsciously drawn to. This awareness provides us with an opportunity to make more conscious choices about the relationships we form and the people we invite into our lives. We can begin to move beyond the limiting roles of the archetypes and embrace more integrated versions of ourselves. For example, rather than simply playing the hero or the caregiver, we might begin to recognize the importance of balance, acknowledging that we are not just defined by one archetype, but by the full spectrum of human potential. In this way, we can transcend the limitations of the archetypal patterns and create more authentic, fulfilling relationships. Additionally, understanding the archetypes allows us to recognize when we are being drawn into relationships based on unconscious patterns rather than true compatibility. We may find ourselves repeatedly attracted to people who embody the same roles that we have outgrown or no longer need to fulfill. By acknowledging this, we can begin to step outside the automatic attraction to those who reflect our old familiar archetypes, and instead open ourselves to relationships that encourage our growth and expansion. This shift in perspective can lead to deeper, more meaningful connections as we attract individuals who are aligned with our current sense of self and our evolving potential. The archetypal forces at work within our relationships also invite us to explore our collective unconscious, the shared, universal patterns that connect all human beings. These archetypes are not limited to individual experiences, but are part of a larger interconnected web of human consciousness. By recognizing the archetypal patterns in our relationships, we are engaging with the broader, timeless forces that shape the human experience, tapping into a deep well of wisdom, guidance, and possibility. In this way, our relationships become more than just personal connections. They become opportunities for us to connect with the greater story of humanity and to participate in the unfolding of universal themes. As we grow and evolve, so too do the archetypes we embody and the people we attract. These patterns provide both structure and fluidity, guiding us through the stages of life, from childhood to maturity, from dependence to independence, and from the search for meaning to the realization of wholeness. Our relationships are a reflection of this ever-unfolding process, and the people we attract play a vital role in helping us navigate the complex terrain of the human experience. They offer us mirrors of our deepest desires, fears, and potentials, reflecting back to us the energies that shape our lives and offering us the chance to grow, learn, and evolve together. In conclusion, the people we attract into our lives are not mere coincidences or random encounters. They are reflections of the deep, unconscious forces that shape our inner world. Our unconscious mind, with its desires, fears, and unresolved conflicts, plays a pivotal role in guiding us toward relationships that help us confront and integrate aspects of ourselves we may not be fully aware of. Through the dynamic of projection, we often attract individuals who reflect our hidden qualities, both positive and negative, offering us an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. Furthermore, the archetypes embedded in the collective unconscious also influence the relationships we form, drawing us toward people who resonate with the roles and energies we embody at different stages of our lives. These archetypes are not fixed, but evolve as we grow, and the people we attract mirror the archetypal patterns we are currently engaging with. Whether we are drawn to the hero, the caregiver, the rebel, or the shadow, these relationships are opportunities to learn, grow, and transcend the roles we unconsciously play. Ultimately, the people who come into our lives serve as mirrors, reflecting back to us the unseen parts of ourselves and offering us the chance to integrate those aspects, leading to greater self-awareness and transformation. Understanding these unconscious dynamics allows us to create more conscious, authentic relationships, transcending limiting patterns and fostering deeper connections. We are not passive participants in our relationships, we are active creators, guided by the forces of our unconscious minds and the timeless archetypes that shape our shared human experience. Through this awareness, we can attract people who truly align with who we are and who we are becoming, creating relationships that are transformative, fulfilling, and deeply connected to our true selves.